And tonight on Joy News Prime, permit more broadcast of cases of immense national importance and not the election petition alone. The plea of Ghana's Minister of Justice as it wades into the increasing attacks on the judiciary.
Sometimes I really think the way to go is to permit more broadcasts of cases of immense national importance and not the election petition alone.
Also tonight, more industrial actions to hit government as the largest public sector worker union in Ghana, TUC, demands an increase in the next minimum wage, which is reflective of the current economic conditions or phase thereof.
So the job crisis, predates, Ukraine. The job crisis came before COVID. Therefore, we think that it is not right to blame COVID and Ukraine for every job crisis that we have in this country.
And as the rain set in, residents of the Esokori Mampo municipality in the Ashanti region are calling for immediate measures to contain a possible flooding in the area.
In
January, the NADMO officials visited the area, which I directed them to the houses of the victims. But nothing has happened afterwards.
Stay with us at 8 p.m. I'll definitely hand it over to Charles for Prime Business, and also Rick will be joining us with sports. Charles, what's coming up in business?
Well, so in business, Ghana is to benefit from a World Bank fund of $170 billion as part of measures to cushion economies around the world from multiple overlapping economic challenges.
In a crisis like this one, we will be allocating more money to social protection programs. That means these targeted subsidies for the poorest.
Oracle will also be joining us with sports.
Well, in sports, we're just over a month to go for the Black Stars to begin their 2023 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. The Ghana Football Association provides an update on the coaching situation.
As of today, the position is that engagements are going on. Once concluded, we will immediately announce to Ghanaians and then move on from there.
My name is Sogah. As usual, we are your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Please stay for details. Also tonight, Minister of Justice Godfred Yeboah-Dame is asking the Chief Justice to permit more broadcasts of cases of immense national importance and not the Supreme Court cases alone. Till date, the presidential election petition of 2012 and 2020 have been the only cases open to the media for coverage in the law courts of the country. However, given the increasing spate of what he describes as the improperly examined commentary on cases in the courts, Godfred Yeboah-Dame says there will be a need to allow the cameras in court. When this is done, the AG believes that the poverty of legal reasoning behind certain cases dismissed by the Supreme Court, and particularly in respect of the cases which the state emerges the victor, will be exposed for all to see. The Attorney General was speaking at the opening session of the 2021-2022 legal year bench, bar and faculty conference.
I throw a challenge to the deans of the universities herein gathered to encourage the academia to which they belong to undertake proper examination and critique of judgment for publication in the review of Ghana law, rather than resorting to social media with ill thought through and improperly examined commentary on cases and other matters of national importance. Ghana cannot afford to gamble with its future by sacrificing the time-honored noble attribute to legal profession on the altar of technology. Reflecting on these unhealthy developments I've spoken about, my Lord Chief Justice, sometimes I really think the way to go is to permit more broadcasts of cases of immense national importance and not the election petition alone. When this is done, what sometimes constitutes the poverty of legal reasoning behind certain cases dismissed by the Supreme Court, and respect of which the state emerges the victor, will be exposed for all to see.
Well, so that's the reasoning of the Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame. But what does the Ghana Bar Association think about this? Public Relations Officer of the Bar, Xavier Kuja, joins us now via Zoom. Xavier, thank you so much. So you've organized this conference, but first of all, help us understand this. Why is it usually the case that the courts are close to the cameras? What accounts for that generally?
Well, the courts are... Good evening, and good evening to everybody. The courts are not usually allowed coverage by cameras because, not for any special reason, but, court proceedings, aside that, when you come to court, there are certain procedures to be observed. So you don't just come in there with your cameras. You can't record and just come in there as you want. You can come and listen in as an individual or as a group without your cameras. So when the need arises for cases such as the election petition, for example, to be covered by cameras, it is made known to the public and the journalists are allowed into the courtrooms. So recording court proceedings without the permission of the court are not generally allowed.
But we've seen some exemptions, at least for the 2012 petition and the 2020 cases as well, respectively. What accounted for that decision? What was the reasoning of the courts into that? And can't we apply that across board for all other cases?
Well, I wouldn't be able to tell you the reasoning behind the decision in allowing the cameras to cover those two particular cases. But as I said earlier, if special cases are made, to the Chief Justice, and he sees reason to allow the cameras to be allowed.
Right.
So if the AG says that going forward, cases of national importance should be allowed to be aired or to be covered by the cameras, I don't think that is a problem or is something that we should shy away from, except that we should be able to define the category of cases that constitute cases of national importance. Once you're able to do that, I think we shouldn't have any problem.
But then he obviously is the concern is stemming from the fact that on social media, there's the increasing trend of attack on the judiciary. What do you feel is accounting for this? Is it only the fact that we have more people having access to platforms where they can vent their concerns?
I think it's not. I think that it's a matter of being disciplined. Let me put it that way. Excuse my language. Because as lawyers, we all know what to do. Nobody will prevent you from critiquing a judgment. We have a proper medium for doing that. It helps the education of everybody else, including lawyers. We are what we call the review of Ghana law, which is published from time to time. If you listen to Attorney General carefully, for some time now, no publications have been done in those journals. Yet, we hear many things in the media, especially social media, by lawyers. So his point is that, look, let's channel that energy into critiquing judgments the proper way. Because by critiquing, you look at the merits and demerits of the judgment. You cite decided authorities on similar cases. And then you can conclude by saying that following all what you have cited, you think that the court ought to have ruled otherwise and not the way they did. But it appears that is not what is happening. Because what is happening now is more laced with emotions than reasoning and objectivity.
So the point is, what difference will the cameras make now if we introduce that into cases of national importance?
Well, because of the sensitive nature of those cases, just as the election petitions, that is why I believe he made such a suggestion. And I believe that it's not going just to be open to just any case, but cases of the scale of national election, the national election, the two national elections that were contested at the Supreme Court. That is why I earlier on said that if you're able to define or determine the cases to be covered by the cameras, then we shouldn't have a problem. Because it's not going to be a blank check for just any case to be covered. That wouldn't happen.
Would we need some guidelines from the court or perhaps the Office of the Chief Justice to guide, and that's assuming without admitting that the Chief Justice will consider this, do we need some guidelines on it?
Exactly so. That would be my suggestion. Because if not, you may end up opening the Pandora box, and that wouldn't work well for anybody.
Now, in recent times, we've also heard some members of the bar refer to the conduct of the judges as well, how some of them have not handled cases, particularly those related to political parties, very well. Don't you feel that increasingly the bench also needs to do something in terms of perhaps opening up and being more transparent into their reasoning?
Well, everybody has some form of opinion, but it is the way you express it that matters. And I can tell you the essence of today's event, which continues tomorrow, is to have interaction amongst lawyers who teach at the universities or work at the universities, or those are in academia, those at the bar, and lawyers who are judges. You know, every judge is a lawyer. So it provides a platform for us to actually do some introspection and brainstorm. And this is not the first time it's happening. I think the last time it happened was in 2019. Then COVID setting. It's actually supposed to be a calendar program or item,
right?
Or as far as justice delivery is concerned. Just that for the past 2 years, 2020, 2021, because of COVID, we couldn't hold it.
All right then. Would have to leave it here, but thank you so much for joining us, Xavier Kudje, PRO for the Ghana Bar Association. There's a need for us to shift our attention now to look at the labour front. Pressure is actually mounting on government to pay public workers their neutrality allowances, which has been owed them for the past 3 months. Today, scores of people seeking government services were actually left stranded as the civil and local government staff withdrew their services across the country. CLOGSAG, in a memo to its members, indicated that it's actually reactivating its January strike, which it suspended to make way for negotiations with government. Our reporters have been on the grounds gauging the impact of today's industrial action. Let's first of all start off from Kumasi, where Love FM's Emmanuel Bright Kweku has the rest of the story.
He traveled from home to make enquiries at the Social Welfare Department, only to be told the office has been closed due to the industrial action.
It's a bit dicey, so we need to stop whatever we are doing and just go back to where we're coming from. If you basically have to travel from a very far distance to make an enquiry and you get here and you can't be attended to, you've wasted whatever money you had on you.
Members of CLOGSAG are clamoring for their 20% neutrality allowance. The allowance is to compensate members to abstain from active politics.
So as you can see, the doors of some offices have been locked, and in an earlier engagement with the regional chairman for CLOGSAG, Mr. Alexander Obi, he indicated that a task force will be deployed to ensure all members imbibe or comply with this directive.
CLOGSAG embarked on strike about 2 months ago. The same day the strike was called off, there's on condition that our grievances will be fulfilled. So the government signed MOU with us, that the CLOGSAG, and there was a one provision in our condition of service known as neutrality allowance. That's the allowance the government decided to give to CLOGSAG members for bearing us from active politics. So when we call off strike, we thought the government would pay it within February. February has passed, no show. April, no show. March, April, no show. So yesterday we had a meeting with the NEC, our highest decision body after Congress. And from what our executive was saying, government has no plans of paying the neutrality allowance any moment from now. So we had no other option to resume the strike. Yes, so that's why we call our members to reactivate the strike. So for now or today, all the CLOGSAG members are to stay home, not going back to the workplaces. We are on strike.
For Joy News, Emmanuel Bright Kweku reporting.
Well, so that's the situation in the Ashanti region. There's a need for us to gauge the mood here in the Greater Accra region, where some stranded customers at the Registrar General's Department shared their frustration with my colleague Michael Papa Niashali.
At the end of this strike are people innocent Ghanaians who are here to do business, but are disappointed, have had to be turned away, wasted their time after hearing that the people they are here to meet are on strike. I have a few people who are here who speak to me and tell us how this really affects some of them. Some of them are here to do business. I'll talk to some of them. So, Chief, good morning.
Good morning.
I mean, what were you here to do?
We're here to register a business. We saw some business, yes.
And when you went there, what were you told?
Actually, there's a man at the gate door, and he told us that, they are on strike now, so we should go back. I asked him when he started. He said yesterday evening. And so he told me that we asked him when it's going to end, and he said it's till further notice. So
as a business owner, how does this make you feel?
It's rather unfortunate and sad because you have to register a business and then being turned away. It's bad. It's bad for us. Coming all the way from where we came from, then come here. It's bad for us. So
let me ask the lady here. Well, what were you here to do?
I also came to transact a business.
What business specifically? Marriage or business? Maybe to register your business?
I can't talk about that.
Okay, that's fine. But I mean, coming to meet this notice that we are not working, we're on strike, how does that make you feel?
It's so uncalled for. I don't know, but it's very bad. It's very bad. It's very bad. It's really bad. We were told, as he said, we were told that it started yesterday evening, and I don't know. They should come back. They should come back.
Do you feel more disappointed that you are not informed about the strike?
I am very disappointed. Very, very disappointed.
Mostly these strikes, they already give us, say, a head notice before, but just for you to waste your money and come here and then they've been told that they're on strike, you have nothing to do, John, but just to go back. So we would have wished that they could have given us prior notice for us to know, so that we could have planned the day well.
Off the top of my head, if I recall, this should be about the second time we are having a strike. And for people who have to come here, this is going to be difficult for you. I mean, what do you think about strikes, especially from civil servants?
Okay, I don't know what is in, but I'm working at an auditing firm. So we have clients who are depending on us to finish the work and finish this statutory requirement. And if you come, the strike, because I've already sold my time, and then my client already has something, say, expecting results, and then I go back to him and tell him that, okay, this is what is happening. I realize that it slows down business. It slows down. So I don't know, but whatever it's happening, they should resolve it as quick as possible to help us stakeholders.
I believe you were here to register something or transact business.
Yes.
What were you told?
I was told they're on strike. They're not working. Wow. So I don't know what to say.
What were you coming to do here?
Actually, I was coming to file my returns and then to do a re-registration. Yes, and I'm coming all the way from Tamale.
So what are you going to do now? All the way from Tamale?
I don't know. I don't know when the strike is going to end. And so I have to go back.
Well, here at Joy News as well, we've been sampling your opinion on social media, taking your thoughts on the demand for neutrality allowance. We asked the question, what should government do? First of all, pay it, scrap it, and some of you are also indifferent on this matter. So here's the revelation for you on social media, except of what many of you have been talking about on Twitter particularly, and also on Facebook. But let's roll the poll now and tell you what the outcome of that poll is. Majority of you, first of all, believe that it's not, well, there's a need for, first of all, a government to do something about it, and that's the figure you have there, 48% saying that you need to pay it. Then you have 40.2% indicating that we need to scrap it. There are some of you who are indifferent about this as well, 11.8%, and that's the outcome of the poll that we have on social media. It's still ongoing, so perhaps you may want to join and also share your thoughts with us. But joining me now on Zoom is Alexander Obeng, chairperson of the Ashanti Regional Chapter of CLOGSAG. Mr. Obeng, thank you for joining us. First of all, government has expressed willingness to pay the arrears owed members of your group. Are you willing to call off your industrial action? Mr. Obeng, if you can hear me, I'm asking if you're willing to call off your industrial action, particularly when we know that government says that it's willing to settle you. Mr. Obeng, if you can hear me, I'm asking if your group will call off your strike now that we know government says they're willing to pay.
Okay, thank you very much, boss. Greeting to you and your cherished viewers. Yeah, as you know, we, the CLOGSAG members, we are always close to the government, but we work close to ministers, MMDCs, and other government appointees. So we don't take in the light of going on strike. Before CLOGSAG member or CLOGSAG says we are going on strike, then it means you've reached a last point of which we can not do anything. So if the government is ready to adhere to our grievances, we don't have any problem. We are ready to call it off right now. As happened last time. I think last time when you went on strike, with less than a day, you call it off. All that we are saying is that government should implement our neutrality allowance they agreed on 3 months ago. That's what we are trying to say. I think that I learned that there's a negotiation going on with our national executive. We have no problem. As soon as they meet us halfway, we are ready to call it off. The question is, why should they wait up to this time?
Right. The talk of town has been the neutrality allowance itself. Help us understand what the neutrality allowance is about and whether or not you deserve it, particularly when we know CLOGSAG is supposed to be a group of neutral persons, people who are not politically affiliated.
Okay, thank you very much. I will start from whether or not we deserve it. That's where I will start from. I think we passed that question when we send our grievances to government. Government set a committee made up of labor, rep from finance, fair wages, and a senior minister. They are all experts in the field, and they all saw a need for us to have this neutrality allowance. As we hear from the Deputy Minister of Labor this evening, he defended it and said that we really deserve it. So whether or not we deserve it is not a question you should answer now. The question is if I agree it, and government should go ahead and implement it.
And what was it initially purposed for? I guess that's what Ghanaians are asking. Because why pay you for something that you're supposed to be aware of? It's part of your duties to be politically neutral. I guess you're fully aware of that.
Okay, thank you very much. I will give you a brief of that. Civil servants, we work closely with the government, as I've already indicated. And as you know, all of us have the right to make a political participation according to our constitution from Article 5, Chapter 5, going that's the freedom of forming association, freedom of movement, freedom of joining any political party of our choice. But according to the ethics of the work, we are barred from doing what active politics, not even assembly member. You cannot stand as assembly member. So CLOGSAG went to Supreme Court for the interpretation of this neutrality, and the Supreme Court affirmed that we cannot be part or do active politics. If that's the case, we submitted our grievances to government that if that's what the government is saying, then we need to be compensated.
Okay, so that's why you're being paid now. But the question going forward is, when will you call off the industrial action? Government says
as I said, as soon as government meets our executive at the national level, and there is a negotiation going on. If our national executive tells us today, even right now, that we met government and government, this is what government is saying. Government says next month or tomorrow, your neutrality allowance is going to be paid. We are ready to call off the strike right now. You know why this strike? We call on this strike. We suspended the previous one. So we thought government paid by end of February, no show. March, no show. April, they've done the validation, no show. And nobody told us anything. Upon all the reminders to Minister of Finance, nothing was said. So at a certain point in time, we thought we have no other option than to sit down and wait for a better, what do you call it, response before we ask our members to go back to
okay work. Then. We'll have to leave it there. That's Alexander Obeng, Ashanti Regional Chairperson of CLOGSAG. Thank you for spending some time with us. The Trade Union Congress as well is also warning the government to avoid using the war in Ukraine as a reason not to increase their daily minimum wage in the next tripartite committee meeting. According to the TUC, which has the largest number on the government's payroll in the public sector, the economy witnessed some turbulent times even before the war in Ukraine. The union says it will not accept excuses any longer in its subsequent dialogue and will resort to industrial action if the demands are not met. Samuel Mbura has the rest of the story.
General Secretary of TUC, Dr. Yaba, speaking to the media after a pre-May Day forum, said the sufferings of the Ghanaian workers have now been exacerbated by the current economic situation, and the Trade Union Congress will not allow that to continue.
So the job crisis, predates, Ukraine. The job crisis came before COVID. Therefore, we think that it is not right to blame COVID and Ukraine for every job crisis that we have in this country. That is not right. And we are not going to accept that. The Trade Union Congress, which is leading organized labor, is very cautious, and we always are biased towards dialogue. We hardly want to strike because strike is a very difficult thing to do. It's like war. So before we declare war on the employers, we have to make sure we have good reason. This time, we have the good reason to do it. Therefore, we caution that the employers must listen to us. And they should not just listen, they should also hear us, because the workers of this country are suffering too much, and we should not allow it to continue. Those who are in charge of this country must know that without workers, this country cannot progress.
He claimed that there are attempts by the government in the next tripartite committee's meeting not to increase the daily minimum wage. He said this would be resisted.
We have the National Tripartite Committee. The National Tripartite Committee has started the process towards determining the minimum wage for this year. For us, that is a do and die. We are going to make sure that minimum wage for workers for this year should not be below inflation. And this will be extended to public sector workers as well. So there's a battle ahead of us. And I can see organized labor is ready to fight. And we are going to do that.
Some public sector workers have also been expressing worry about the increased cost of living in the country, which they say is affecting their incomes.
And as a worker, I expect the government to fix the economy, do what is expected of the government to do, so that it can alleviate the poverty in the country, so it can also cushion up the workers in the country.
It's an undeniable fact that every Tom, Dick, and every worker in this country is having the heat, is feeling the heat of the economy. Things are just not going right for everybody. And you could see the consistency at which prices of goods and services are just increasing, like I would say, at an increasing rate, and eroding the value of our incomes, especially our disposable income.
The reality is that they should go back and then treat workers to be happy and work. That's what I can say for government too.
We are telling the government that workers, we are not happy. This thing is killing us softly. We are not happy. So we need him to do something else straight away.
The pre-May Day Forum was organized by a German non-profit foundation, Frederick Ebert Stiftung, on the theme Protecting Jobs and Incomes in the Era of COVID-19 Pandemic and Beyond. Samuel Mbura's report for Joy News, Accra.
And you're welcome back. Let's take you to the Ashanti region. The Asokore Mampo municipality in the Ashanti region has a number of communities recording perennial flooding with devastating impact of the flood waters, including loss of lives and property. As the rain setting, the local assembly says it is taking measures to contain the flood. Live FM's Emmanuel Bright Kweku visited some of the communities and comes through with this report.
It's that season of the year where many households are left stranded at the mercy of the rains. Many households living in swampy areas become worried when the rains begin. Farouk has been working as a tailor for a decade at Sawaba, a flood-prone community. His shop is located close to a trench.
So in case like 4 hours rain now.
The drains are smaller, so when it rains heavily, they overflow their banks and flood this area. Residents in this community ousted the former assembly member for failing to deal with the floods. Farouk, however, alleges the current officer is neither putting in efforts to solve the menace.
In January,
the NADMO officials visited the area, which I directed them to the houses of the victims. But nothing has happened afterwards.
With Sawaba Assemblyman, Honorable Red, You know, I'm not but I'm born.
Not only have the floods destroyed people's properties, the roads constructed over this bridge at the Sawaba enclave is riddled with potholes.
So where I am currently standing is the Pelele drain located here in the Asokore-Mampong municipality. This enclave has for the past years been flagged as a flood-prone area, with some records of members of this community dying and others having lost their properties as a result of heavy downpours.
Along the drain are makeshift structures belonging to squatters and some business owners. These squatters have had to erect their buildings on pedestals to escape the floods.
You can't use the route when it rains. That is why I have built my shop on pillars.
Last time nipa mienu and the last time she say bakuso inside there. Yenim nsuo no ho asam nti ye bole dem no ya peje no. Nti nsuo bakura entimi nwuro ye de dem.
Because of the floods, we've erected our homes on pedestals.
Aha, and in a problem.
Few meters away from the Pelele Trench sits a huge building and an abandoned mosque.
Even though the mosque and the story building behind me have been marked for demolition, you still can see some building being erected by constructors over here. This could pose danger to members of this community as a result of these heavy downpours that might be coming in the subsequent days.
Over the years, the Ashanti region has recorded devastating consequences of torrential rains, with properties running into thousands of Ghana cedis being lost. Mambo has been working at the Sepe community for close to 15 years. While many lament their losses, Mambo, who owns this vulcanizing shop close to the major drain in this community, says he is not affected by the floods.
While still in the Ashanti region, the scientists at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology are warning regular consumers of watermelon of adverse health effects from banned pesticides. The findings, published in the journal Scientific Reports, found unacceptable levels of pesticides, residues like DDT in some of the fruits on the market in the Ashanti region. Joy News' medical correspondent, Dr. Nathan Pesram, reports.
A group of pesticides known as organochlorines, which DDT and HCH form a part of, are banned for agricultural use. However, developing countries such as Ghana continue to use them.
Probably because of the organochlorine pesticides that have been banned and are still in use. And if you look at fruits, they are not the type of things that we cook before eating. We take them as we consume them as we find them. The only thing probably that we do is to wash them. And these persistent organic pesticides, the organochlorine pesticides, have effect on human beings, harmful effect. They are poisonous, they have a tendency to cause cancer, and for which reason this particular project was something that was of necessity. And so we wanted not only to look at what happens in the market, because we know that people bring their wares from the farms to the market to sell. We're looking at what happens on the farm.
The scientists wanted to assess the levels of organochlorine residues in fruits and determine the potential risk associated with exposure to these pesticides. For the study, the researchers used 120 fruits from 5 communities in the Mampong municipality of the Ashanti region.
All these are communities where they are doing extensive farming into fruits and fruits mainly. And we looked at 3 of them: banana, pineapple, and watermelon, which is very much consumed. All these 3 are consumed by a lot of people on a daily basis. So we looked at the possible risk associated with these consumptions, and we realized that for most of these fruits, the risk of consumption was low for both infants and adults. But then for watermelon, the risk of consumption for adults was low, whereas that for infants was alarmingly high. I would say alarmingly high because the factor that we got was far greater than 1, which means that it is alarming.
Non-governmental organization C40 Cities is calling on government to take steps to protect vulnerable groups, particularly informal waste collectors, to be resilient against the growing harsh effects of climate change. It is estimated that more than 30% of Ghana's workforce forms part of the informal waste collection labor force. The NGO, amongst other things, is calling on the Accra Metropolitan Assembly for the formulation of an inclusive policy that protects and enhances the livelihoods of waste collectors. There's more in this report.
Our fears was the day we heard that there's a recession, no bola taxi or tricycle must pass the highway or other users' way. And we got shaken that, hey, where are we going and what are we going to do?
President of the Tricycle and Bola Taxi Association, Lydia Banfo, articulating the fears of her members when a partial ban was placed on tricycles in November of 2021. Many of her members cut waste from homes to dumping sites. They feared the ban will cause many of them to lose their livelihood. It is estimated that over 80% of the Ghanaian workforce is employed in the informal sector. Of that number, 30% is involved in the management of waste. C40 Cities is an NGO advocating for inclusive climate actions that protect the vulnerable. In their assessment, they identify the absence of an existing policy guiding the operations of informal waste operators as inimical to protecting the livelihoods of these informal waste collectors. Josephine Agbeko serves as City Advisor for Inclusive Climate Action with C40 Cities.
The bigger picture is that the informal sector occupies about 80% of labor in the city, and so it only serves the best purposes if we're able to integrate and engage them and create spaces where they're able to do work meaningfully. We are able to protect or safeguard their livelihoods. We found in the needs assessment process that we did that the challenges included the fact that there wasn't a particular liaison between the city and the informal waste sector when it comes to some of these engagements. So a liaison within the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. Also the fact that there isn't a specific engagement strategy or even policy. So there are interest areas here and there. These have also been shared as in various documents. For instance, in the city's resilience strategy, it's shared that the city wants to do this sort of work, wants to do engagement, wants to promote waste management, etc. But as to what actions will be taken, that's absent. And it's almost as if it's not anybody's major mandate to do this informal sector engagement.
Meanwhile, the waste collectors are calling on government to engage them as it strategizes on how to make Accra a clean city. Lydia Banfo is the president of the Tricycle and Bola Taxi Operators.
Waste is money. If you ask Lydia, waste is money. If you pick waste, it's money. It's money means that it will depend the way you manage it will become money to you. Because we have a lot of things in the ways that we can use to do something better out there. That's why we always preach that if government can build a buyback center for the informal waste collectors, one, it will help. If government can manage to get a transfer station, two, it will help. Because if the buyback center is there, the informal waste collectors, they also know the types of waste that it's recycling, reusing, and remanufacturing.
But head of AMA Waste Management, Solomon Noy, says the Assembly will make special allocation to them as it reviews its waste collection and management franchise system.
So we are taking them and carrying them along through the waste value chain, right from the point of generation through collection, treatment, and then the final disposal. So this is where we'll create spaces for them. And so currently we are reviewing our franchise agreements where we'll create some concessions for them, but it is for them to also meet certain key regulations, because we will do this without compromising on our city bylaws and national bylaws. That is where the transfer stations are coming in. It will come along with buyback centers, so that these waste pickers, their livelihoods will be taken care of. They will go to the transfer stations, salvage whatever their interest in.
It is expected that as climate conditions change for the worse, government and its related institutions will take steps to protect vulnerable groups from its harsh effects. For Joy News, Michael Ashale, Accra.
Of course, you know what time it is. It's time to check out what's happening in the world of entertainment. The man IB is here. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. It's good to see you.
Anytime you come, I know, there's something really cooking.
Yeah,
that's why you come. Yeah, just to, listen, I have something for you, you know.
Definitely there's something cooking.
It's always a surprise.
Okay, so the surprise is the fact that the Deputy Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture is saying that the creatives have not been ignored, or the creative industry have not been ignored, just as people are thinking or otherwise presuming, because they think the sector is tilted towards tourism. And he gave us reasons. Well, this morning he was on the show with Andy Dosty, the morning show on Hit FM, that is Daybreak Hit. And he said that is the more reason why the domestic tourism was initiated. It is not because, or it's not simply because the creatives are being ignored. Well, let's go into the studios of Hits 103.9 FM and just hear how the Honorable Deputy Minister put it.
Tourism is not different from creatives. So I don't want to hear the question of how is the creative industry doing. Tourism is not different from creatives. So I don't want to hear the question of how is the creative industry doing as against that of tourism. It sends a signal that there are lines or there are gaps amongst the three: culture, creatives, and then tourism. Let me explain further. When we went to Kwahu a few days ago, who are the beneficiaries? The idea for Kwahu is domestic tourism. But you saw Kofi Kinata. I think Samini was there.
Samini, Kwabna.
Kwame Eugene.
Was Eugene there? Eugene was there. We took him there.
Okay.
Yeah, Adam.
People came to sell food. The hotels were vibrant. Most of them were full.
Hotels are always full when it comes to Kwahu.
Good. So, rooms full. Taxis were busy. Media, Adom FM was present. Some...
Not only Adom, almost all the...
Okay. Some took money to advertise the activities of Kwahu. So media made money. So you see the value chain, you see the ecosystem. Tourism is a marketing tool for almost every product in your country.
Yep, that is Michael Kwigman saying what he said.
No comments.
Well, another person, Camido, who is doing well, so well is Camido, and he's the hit maker for the Sugarcane track. Well, he is saying that as a musician, always make sure you're working hard, but have longevity in your mind, because you need to have a certain lifespan. And he was in the studio of Joy 99.7 when he told this to George Quay.
And another thing I want to say, for me, like, I look at longevity.
Yeah.
That's my key. I'm like, whatever I'm doing today, I want to make sure that it is going to last me a long time. Like,
very important.
You know, it's something I look out for. And I love to go the route of hard work. Like, I think I've done covers like more than anybody. Like, if you go back to my stuff, you know, I believe that if this is what I want to do, I have to prove myself in every corner.
Exactly.
With regards to this music. So I don't play with music. I don't play with it at all. Like, I don't think I've bounced more than 2 performances in my life. Like, I don't like it. I want it, because you never know where it might just happen. So I'm saying that hard work, and whatever hard work you're doing, let it be with regards to longevity.
Yeah, and that's why Sugarcane is working for you.
Okay, well, Sugarcane, I'm glad you know Sugarcane.
Yeah, we all know Sugarcane.
Well, that is all time. That is what I have in the world.
Ivy, thank you for joining us. But that's all we have in this package.